goal of this video is to demonstrate the self-tacking jib and other mods I've made over the last 3 years to my Adventure Island. Many of the mods were concepts borrowed from others on the Hobie website. It was made from a material called Code Zero. It's a very lightweight material for sails, and it was made by Bank Sails in Kemah, Texas. They'll make these sails for anybody that asks, and their cost is about $375. So I'm going to demonstrate how the halyard works. There are two preset heights for the jib, and what you see me demonstrating here is the connection to the base of the mast, and then you can see two knots on this halyard line, and you see that it normally the hardware hooks into the first knot, but if you pull it and hook it into the second knot, you see how the jib raises to a higher level. The lower the jib, the more or the less drag you have, and the more forward drive, but also the more tendencies to submarine. The higher the setting, the more suited it is for higher winds. So you see me here showing the halyard going up to the top of the mast, and at the top of the mast it connects to a block that then continues on to the jib head. As the halyard goes up the mast, it then goes through a block and to the head of the jib. The block is attached to the mast either by what you see here, where I permanently altered the sail with strips of canvas and a loop, which is totally unnecessary, but that's what I've done here. The other way to do that is just to take a line and tie it to the top of the mast and create a big loop and put your block in that loop, and that works perfectly fine. I found that out afterwards and wish I'd saved myself the money of the canvas altering the sail, and like I say, you don't need to do that. There are no mods in this whole setup that are permanent, that need to be permanent, and you can restore your boat completely back to the stock shape it was in from the beginning, and when you're done here, and sell it if you want to without having to worry about resale value. At the end of this video, I'll demonstrate how to tie that line at the top of the mast so that you can attach the block to the mast. Then as we move down to the tack of the jib, you see that there's a line that attaches what I call my tack line, and that line then goes through a block that's connected to the bow of the hull. That allows me to tension the luff. So rather than tensioning the luff through the halyard line, you're doing it through this tack line. You'll see the advantages of doing it this way later on. This tack line continues back, goes underneath the crossbar, and comes back and is attached to a cleat at the pocket. This cleat is completely removable and you do not need to alter the hub or the hull to do this. You just use one screw that's already in the pocket, and you'll see that right here. I'm demonstrating that. And then to attach to the front of the cleat, I just used a zip tie in that little space that you see there in the pocket. So nothing gets altered, and that holds that or that cleat rather, very tightly. So when you release the tack line, the jib just falls back to you in the cockpit, and this makes removing and putting up the jib a breeze. So this is a self-tacking jib. I'll have a line that goes from one aka to the other, and the jib clue just slides along that line. So here's how I attach it. I've got a boom hitch knot at each end of the aka, and this one you see that when you pull on it, it doesn't go anywhere. But if you want to, you can take and just slide this knot anywhere you want on that aka. So it allows you to change position anytime you want. So you can use uh, uh, tramps on this, and it won't create a problem for you. Just slide it all the way out, or if you want it further in, you can always experiment with it further down without the tramps on. I typically leave my tramps on and have it all the way out on the aka. So before I set this jib traveler up, I want to show you the clue furling line. This is a small line attached from the base of the mast to the clue of the jib, and it serves two purposes. This line is connected by quick release hardware to the base of the mast, to the canvas little strap that's down at the bottom of your sail, so that you can disconnect completely from the mast when you're putting the jib away. It limits the jib's maximum travel laterally out to the side, and it also makes the jib start furling at the correct time, which is just after several turns of the main. By doing it this way, it furls the main almost halfway before you begin to lose the slot in the jib, so it allows you to sail with as winds get higher just by furling the main a bit, and still be working with the jib and the main. You'll notice the quick release hanging from the clue of the jib, and this is what I use to connect to the line that's going to work as a self-tacking traveler. You can buy these quick releases off of eBay. They're dirt cheap, and or Amazon, either one, and that's probably the cheapest place you can get these. So I continue the line from one side to the other aka, and on the other aka I have another boom hitch, and then I've attached a block to the end of that. And I'll explain this here in just a moment, but this is self-tacking jib. Also you have the ability to tension that self-tacking line, and that gives you more control of the jib in a way that allows you to pull back on it or put more slack on the jib, which will work better in certain winds. So the line is pulled through the block, and then it comes back to the crossbar, and you'll notice that I have another block right there at the corner of the crossbar. I'll show it to you in just a second. Right here. And so we go through that block as well. And that'll line this line up with the cleat that you have for your rudder upline. You'll have it on the pocket there. There we go. So you can see that it just hooks on that cleat right there. I put another cleat forward too as well, which works a little better for me. Again, you don't have to have that. It'll work fine without that if you don't want to make any permanent mods. So now we take this quick release and we're going to hook it on to the jib traveling line. Okay, so now I'm showing that it's connected, and now it can freely travel back and forth. So when you tack, the jib just does its own thing. And although you can tension that line to get the contour of the jib that you're looking for, it really just takes care of itself while you're out there sailing. You can just pretty much forget about it. So now I'm going to show you how I pull back and tension that jib traveler line. And when that's tensioned, it'll change your shape of your jib. So here's an on-the-water demonstration of what it's like when you tension that jib traveler line, how it changes the jib shape. Here I'm demonstrating the safety lines that run from the bow to the mid-ama, and these are safety lines that prevent the amas from collapsing backwards. In rough water or going offshore, I always set up these lines. There are quick releases at both ends of these lines so that if I have a capsize or something, I can release that to collapse in the amas to upright the boat. So now I'm going to demonstrate the cockpit and the lines and sheets that you have in your cockpit. You're going to have 4 lines. You've got the main sheet, you've got the tack line, you've got the furling line, and you have the sheet that goes to tension the traveler. When you go to furl the jib into the main, you release that quick release that's hooked onto the traveler, just like I did there. And that way it doesn't get tangled up in the main. There's a rhyme and a reason to it, and you just have to trust me. If you don't do that, it'll create problems for you furling. So then you release the main sheet and the tack line, the jib tack line, and then you go ahead and furl. You notice I didn't have to release the jib traveler tension line because it was no longer connected to the jib traveler once I released that quick release at the clew. When you first begin to experiment with this setup, you'll realize that lines will get tangled up on the main when you furl if you don't do certain things. One of those things was to make sure that the only connection to the mast at the jib clew is that little short furling line and nothing more. You also want to make sure that you only have a half of a halyard, essentially, where the way that I've connected that halyard so that it comes down and it clamps on, instead of being like a normal halyard where you'd have this long line that then has to be secured to a cleat at the base of the mast. Well, that long line gets in the way when you go to furl in this type of arrangement. So you have to work with a half line, if you will, and I'll show you in a bit how you can drop this jib and still be able to retrieve that line when you've only working with half of a jib line. I'm going to demonstrate a few times here, releasing the main, releasing the clew or the tack line, and then pulling on the furling line. And again, to open these sails up, again, it's just release the furling line and pull at the same time on both the main sheet and the jib tack line. But there will be times when you're out in really rough conditions and you need to get this jib down. You don't want to just furl. You want to use your mainsail, but you want this jib down. So to do that, I take this other line that I've kept in the pocket. This is the other half of the halyard line, if you will, and I connect it up to the original halyard line. This is going to let me drop the jib and be able to and put it back up later if I want to. Otherwise, that line would the halyard line would just go up to the top of the mast and you wouldn't be able to retrieve it. So once I connect that line, I can just drop the jib down, and then I can release the clue line, which I've already done here, and then that allows me just to very quickly and easily scoop up the jib. And now I release the lines, the halyard line, and I'll connect that halyard line to the base of the mast so I don't lose it, and that's what I'm doing right now. You see me connect it here. You can connect it anywhere. There's lots of little lines in there and things you can connect it to, all again using quick releases. Then I'm going to have to disconnect the jib tack line from the jib, and I have to disconnect, right now you see me disconnecting that furling line from the jib, the small furling line, and that's it. And this just then goes anywhere you want. I just store it in the hull through the hatch right in front of your seat. So now it's time to put the jib back up. First I'll take the halyard and I'll connect it to the head of the jib, and then I'll connect the jib tack line to the tack of the jib, and I'll just raise the halyard. All you have to do is just scoot up just a little bit on your seat, just like you see me doing here, to put this up. You don't have to get way up on the bow of the boat to do this. It's all in a sitting position. Now you see me using that black line, which was necessary to be able to raise this jib. But I don't want to leave that black line on the halyard because it's going to get in the way of me furling. That's why I have it disconnect with some hardware from that line, from the halyard line, and I just store the other half of the halyard, if you will, in the pocket of in the cockpit. So once it's put up, I just connect the quick release at the clew of the jib, and then connect that to the traveler line, and now I'm ready to go. So I love this arrangement because with it you can show full sails, both of them. You can furl the main halfway and still be using your jib. You can furl both the jib and main at the same time. You can take the jib down and run just with your main. It has that versatility. clarify what's in the cockpit. You got your furling line, you've got your main sheet, you've got your jib tack line, and that's secured by the cleat that's connected to the right pocket. And then you're going to find on the left side of the hull the one remaining line, which is going to be the line that tensions your jib traveler. And you see the jib traveler there running across, and here's the line that connects to the cleat on the pocket, the left pocket, and that tensions your jib traveler line. So keep in mind that the main sheet and the jib tack line work as one. You pull them out at the same time and you release them at the same time. So let's say these sails were furled and I were going to pull out the sails. I would release the furling line and then I would pull both the main sheet and the jib tack line at the same time and the sails would come out. And vice versa. To furl, I'd release the main sheet and the jib tack line and pull the furling line. So now I'm just going to demonstrate some other things, other mods I've made with the boat. First thing I want to demonstrate is the seat arrangement and the fishing roll bar that I have on here. The roll bar serves the purpose of several purposes, really, multi-purposes. It holds the seat cushion upright, the back one. It holds my fishing rods. It has an area to hold the fishing rod when I'm trolling. It prevents the, you'll notice that the main sheet comes up through the roll bar, and that purpose of that is to keep that main sheet from pulling and catching a fishing rod and just throwing that fishing rod into the ocean. So it's been great, and I also hook on different objects to this. That area right there is where I hook not fishing rods but just supplies. The back holders are actually meant for, these holders there are meant for the rods when I'm just traveling. And at the base of the roll bar you see the rod holders that I use when the rods are used for actual trolling. These cushions are Jim Bowie cushions you can get from Academy, and they're like 30 bucks a piece. And it's a not a hard rubber, but a soft rubber outer coating that prevents the cushions from getting wet inside, soggy. And it also keeps you from sliding around on your cushions. Where you sit, you stay. And these can be also used for flotation devices if needed. I would say that's my favorite seating position because you're sitting down low but you're not in the puddle, and it's kind of a little sportier ride when you're sitting down low, but sometimes you want to sit up and you want to be out there in comfort, and that's when the quarterdeck comes into place. This quarterdeck is made of PVC and it just slides right down into the rod holders. And so now I'm not fishing, although I could with this, but I'm not really fishing, I'm just out sailing. And so it has a seat that I'm going to show you here in a bit where you have the option to sit down into the cockpit if you want, or you can sit up on the quarterdeck and balance out the boat and sit out further on the tramps and enjoy the view. They connect underneath the cushion. The cushions connect underneath to bungees that are on the quarterdeck. So I'm going to take one of the cushions here in a second, and I'm going to put it on that support right here on the quarterdeck. And you're going to see in this situation, you'll be sitting. This setup allows you to sit down into the cockpit with a high backrest. The angle is perfect for my back. It's just the way I want it. You can adjust it however you want it when you make it. But this gives me a high backrest, and I'm sitting down in the cockpit. And at any time I want, I can get up and sit on the quarterdeck on the sides, or I can, as you'll see here in a second, alter the quarterdeck so that I can completely rest on top. Here, I'll show that to you in just a bit. So let's make that change. There's a little piece of PVC that's necessary that sits in the storage well and then hooks on to your back support so that it sits solid, so that you can now have a back support while you're sitting on the quarterdeck. The other seat cushion comes up. Now, if you think that looks comfortable, it is. So you have the option just to sit in the seat. You can move out to the side, or you got the tramps out there, or without. But you can just rest your feet out to the side and take in the view. Just a really nice setup. You stay on the windward side to balance the boat. You can lay down, all sorts of options. So let's take a look and see what this looks like on the water. So next I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the tiller arm. The first thing that I did was I took my steering knob and I removed the screw in the center and lifted it right on up and turned it 90 degrees and then just set it back down and inserted the screw. That allows me to steer with the knob pointed outwards, and it's much more comfortable when you're sitting in the seat. It's out of your way instead of having to reach underneath your leg. But it also has an advantage if you have a quarterdeck, because then you're only pulling that steering knob forward and back, not side to side. I use a handle, a tiller arm, that's really the end of a broom, the plastic end of a broom hooked into a PVC rod that I think is electrical conduit. And so I don't have to paint it and don't have to worry about continuing to repaint it year after year. The broom handle just pops into a metal hardware that just screws into where the knob would have normally screwed into the steering handle. You can get the hardware just at any Home Depot. Bottom line is you can just get creative at Home Depot and make these tiller arms pretty easy. Don't be afraid to mess with and modify your handle a little bit to move it into this position. You're not going to do any harm. When you lift that handle off, you're not going to have everything fall apart when you lift up the steering handle. If you have questions, just ask your dealer how to go about doing that. The next thing you'll notice about this boat is, this is a 2012 Adventure Island, but you notice these amas are really long. Well, that's because they're not the amas that go with an AI. These are the TI amas. They can be placed on an AI. you're you're going to have them they toe in or toe out just a little bit, but it doesn't make a big difference at all, and it increases tremendously to the stability of the boat. At first, I thought I was going to have to buy new Akkas too, and I did buy the two front Akkas, but the truth of the matter is that I didn't need to. It was an issue where the Akka doesn't go all the way through the AMA to the bottom if you use AI Akkas, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't bounce out. It's not an issue. So you don't have to buy that. If you want to upgrade to the TI AMAs, then you can do that at any time without buying Akkas too. There I was just demonstrating safety lines again, how they connect at mid-Akka or mid-AMA and then come up and then connect again at the bow. And there's hardware at both ends to allow me to disconnect in case of capsize or some other problem. When I'm transporting the boat, they disconnect there at the AMA, and I just connect them on to the bungee that's alongside of the boat, so they're completely out of the way. One thing I'd like to do in the future is have two bungees at the end of each AMAs that are connecting to the Akkas. Never got around to that, never really had a big concern about that, but plan to do that in the future. In fact, you can buy that setup from Hobie. Here I'm just demonstrating how to get rid of the splash that occurs with at the handle. I just got some pool noodle, cut out a piece that matches the blue on the boat, and stuck it in there, and it just holds itself. It's a tight fit, and I don't secure it in there. This is my anchor line, and I like to keep it here because it's easy to release it. And I've got a traveler. That red line that you see there is a traveler. What I'm holding here now is a mooring line snubber that has line circled around it, which allows me to hook hardware onto that snubber at any point. And then if this is pulling against something, like I'm hooked up to an oil rig, it's not going to damage the boat anyway, and I get some shock absorption. The red line you see here that I'm holding in my hand is a traveler, which I'll show you in a bit. So I hook up my anchor to this hardware here and just throw it over the front. And then it unravels. It's set to unravel one at a time, so I don't have to run it off a spool or anything like that. I'll demonstrate here how when you pull this out, as long as you put it in the correct way, it just pulls out. Here's a little traveler that's going to pull this anchor line out to the front of the bow so that the direction it's pulling the boat is straight forward into the wind if there's a heavy wind. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how this setup would work. First, I'm going to go get my anchor here in just a second and come back, and we'll hook that up, and then I'll pretend like I'm releasing this anchor. This arrangement leaves me a little bit metal, almost like a metal chain in front of the anchor, and it allows me to if I want to, I could put a another setup like a drift line, a drift sock or something like that on this too. Anything I wanted to put on there, sea anchor, anything. So I would throw that anchor over and it would just one by one pull out. There's always a little rat's nest there. Not too bad. So it's pretty easy to release this thing this way. And you just do this by scooting up in your seat. I've done it many times. It's not a problem. Hopefully I can demonstrate this so you can see what I've done here. Normally I didn't have that sitting outside the bungee, so I'm putting that where it should have been, where it would have been if I were out in the water. So at this point, there's a little loop in my white anchor line that I'm going to hook the traveler to, or to the trolley to. And you'll see me in just a second pull on the red line. Here we go. Which will allow me then to bring the anchor line so that it's right at the hull, at the bow of the hull. So the arrangement would look just like that. The anchor would be pulling out. A safety line makes it a little hard to see what is what there, but that everything I'm lifting there is your anchor line, and it attaches then right at that bow. It's important that you bring up the Mirage drive and your dagger board as well as your rudder if you want your boat to lie straight into the waves and into the wind. Otherwise it'll turn your boat sideways and you're going to get caught off guard. So everything up and your anchor line to the bow, and you're good to go. You can sit through a storm that way. So now it's time to bring in the anchor line. You just pull, get it back, and now you have control. So you make your loops and you're just going to stick that back underneath when you got all your loops together, and you're right back to the original arrangement you had, and you're on you go. Now that that's over, notice the spray skirt I have on here. What's holding that spray skirt out laterally is just a bungee. So as I back up here a little bit, you kind of see how I've done this. That bungee just goes around one of the knobs on the Akas. And so, you just release the bungee and the spray skirt moves back. It keeps a constant tension on the spray skirt so they look nice. And here you're going to get a view of that PVC connection, and at the back the mechanism that I use to support the upright backrest on the quarterdeck. All just pops apart. And the quarter deck just pops off whenever you're done using it. Here's another snubber with a line wrapped around it that hooks to the back crossbar. This is in case you ever have to tow somebody or connect a drift sock to the back of your boat. Then by hooking things up to this, you prevent any damage to your boat. So now I'm going to demonstrate backup lines that I've created for this boat. Having been offshore before and seen somebody break their Spectra rudder down line, uh, it made me realize that I want to have backup lines should something happen. So I created an extra rudder down line, and I created extra steering lines so that there would have to be two Spectra lines to break before I would lose my steering and also the control of the rudder. The rudder down line runs down underneath the rudder and back to where the original rudder down line connects, and then I connect those two lines. You can have I recently had my rudder lines changed out because they were beginning to fray a little bit, and I just had them continue that loop around so that I could run it forward like I've done, like you see here, hooked onto that metal clip, and I'll show you in a bit how that works. But that line itself will ultimately be, maybe showing it here, but it's going to come forward. It hooks onto the bungee so that when your line is going up and down normally, it doesn't create a problem. But when that would be down, that line will pull forward and go around the little metal, or not that point I'm pointing to right now, which is a little cleat there that the bungees go around, and it just hooks onto that, and then it holds that rudder down. So it's a way of manually holding your rudder down if instead of using your rudder line because your rudder line for some reason has broken inside. Then the other thing is that the steering lines connect to a piece of PVC that I've stuck inside a lure protector, Velcro protector, that allows me just to attach that to the bungee on the boat and it stays there. These lines just go back, and with a toothpick you can push them in the original spot that the other lines are in and just make a tie. But you got to use Spectra line. It's got to be real strong and thin line. So you use Spectra, you can get it from your Hobie dealer. So I make that another tie with a separate line there, and then the two lines continue on up to this PVC and they're tied to each end of the PVC. So when I'm sitting on the boat and I no longer have steering, all I've got to do is just pull this thing forward, and you turn the handle one way or the other and it steers the boat to the left or the right. Just like that, I just turn it. There's no big deal. You see the steering knob turn as I put pressure on the line. I thought I might be able to do this where you just pull it over the front of you, but that doesn't really work because I usually got my I guess for everybody else it probably works fine, but if you have a roll bar, that doesn't work real well. So I just have to pull it off to the side. when I demonstrate this in a bit on the water, you'll see that I'm pulling it off to the side and doing it. But with one hand, it's easy to steer the boat. And if you are done, you just roll this thing up. And then I'm going to take my fishing line, the lure protector rather, and you get these at Academy too, these protectors, and just wrap that up in there and put it had a few people request instructions on how to attach the jib to the top of the mast, and so I thought I'd demonstrate this. You just take a line and you push back the canvas strap, and you take your line, stick it in there, and then just make a half hitch tie. And then you're going to go to the other side and you're going to do another half hitch. We're going to do what's called the Chinese finger trap. Then we're going to come around the front and do another half hitch. And usually that's all you got to do. And then I'll probably throw another tie in there to make it like a square knot. Just like there. And now I've got two lines hanging down, and what I'm going to do is going to connect those with a secure knot. I might use something like a bowline knot, and let's see if I show this here. Anyway, I'm showing that by doing the Chinese finger trap, you're kind of preventing that knot from sliding down and damaging your sail. So you make another loop here as far down as you want it to be. I like a fractional jib, a fractional rigged jib, so that the jib is not all the way up to the top of the mast. I like it further down. And uh, so you make your loop as big as you want it to, and just whatever knot you want to use, bowline or whatever you want to use, go ahead and tie that knot, and now you've got a loop. Make sure that you're tying in that loop your block that you're going to need, and then your jib your halyard just runs up through that block, and that's all there is to it. It's pretty easy. I haven't felt any difference in the way that the jib handles or the mast bends or anything like that when I tie to the top of the mast versus when I'm securing the jib using the canvas that I've had sewn permanently into this mast. So the sewing of this canvas that I did to make loops in the mast was back when I didn't realize that it was unnecessary, and really I would not alter your sail in any way. It's an expense that's not necessary. The beauty of this whole arrangement is that you could put this boat completely back together in its stock condition and sell it to somebody, and they wouldn't feel like they're getting some heavily altered boat. It's quite nice. I've been sailing for a year with this jib arrangement, and it hasn't damaged the boat in any way. I look forward to 2016 when Hobie comes out with its new reacher, and I should be able to put it on this boat without it interfering with the jib in any way.